Steve, JD asks, does Knack have more than one difficulty?
Yes, there's easy, normal, and hard in Knack. And yeah, hard can be very hard. There are plenty of enemies in this game that can one-shot you, even when you're a gigantic, large Knack. And that can be a little frustrating. It's got an in-boss in particular that is just a real monster. And you have to play it through start to finish, so no checkpoints.
Really?
Yeah, and
that's rough. That's old school.
Yeah, exactly. And you had mentioned, like Cerny said, like we want to make this kind of an old school game, and it does have some of those hallmarks. But I feel like games have come a long way since then.
Yeah. I'm wondering. We were talking a lot about the game recently, and I haven't had a chance to. I haven't really formed an opinion on it, but. Right. It made me start to think, like, even though I really was kind of impressed by Knack at times when I saw it in pre-release environments, I wonder, would you be better off just buying the Ratchet and Clank collection or like the Sly collection or playing Sly 4 or something like that, if that's the old school kind of platformer experience you want? Because those games are awesome.
Yeah. And I think Knack lends itself to that, right? Like, you can sit down and play this game for 20 minutes and you like it because in your brain you're sort of extrapolating that to the 8 to 12 hours that you feel like you'll be spending with it, imagining that there's other stuff in it, and there's just not. It's like that 20 minutes that you had with it, that's the game you're going to be playing for the next 11 hours.
Interesting. I almost wonder, this game will do well as a product of being a launch game, a launch exclusive that people will buy, and so maybe they'll do another one that will remedy some of these problems, or, I'd be interested to see how they react to some of the things that people have been saying to see if they can make a stronger offering.
Well, yeah, my whole metaphor for describing this game to people is, if you're flying from New York to Los Angeles and journey to the mysterious island with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is on, you're like, okay, I would never watch this movie given a choice, but here I am, I'm in the seat, I might as well just watch it, right?
Right.
And that to me is what the experience of playing Knack is like. It's sort of, it's here right now and it's in front of my face, so I guess I'll try to make the best of it. And that's not exactly a glowing recommendation.
No, but it's a great metaphor, actually. We've all been there on the planes, on the long international flights where you're watching, After Earth.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you got to, like launch lineups sort of lend themselves to that, right? Like not every launch lineup is going to have a Super Mario or a Halo or something like that in it. So you got to make the best of the environment you're in. And for us in this case, Knack's definitely not as good as Killzone or Resogun, but if you want a platformer, it's kind of the only game in town right now.
Right. Yeah, and we wrote about it. We were talking about it before we went on the live stream. I wrote a couple weeks ago about launch games and launch lineups for PlayStation consoles in particular. And when you distill it to the few biggest games for each launch, like PS4's launch is actually pretty good. I really think only Vita would beat it in terms of quality games, and not after that helped Vita.
Right.
But Uncharted was available. It's still one of the best games on Vita. And I think when you compare Knack, Resogun, and Killzone to Summoner, Fantavision, and Smuggler's Run on PS2, I think you have a pretty quality lineup compared to what we had on some other consoles. And PS1's lineup was especially soft.
So here we're getting to a point where Knack begins to uncover some of the secrets of where he might have come from. It never really pays off, but he begins to interact with other relics and see that, oh, he's actually part of this bigger thing that's going on. And so, like, this level in particular, just visually is striking. I mean, it's really beautiful and just really well thought out aesthetically, and it's got a generally interesting design just in terms of the layout of the playing space. But there's no emotional content. There's no reason to really care about any of this other than just as a technical achievement or an artistic achievement, visually speaking. So here's a great case where, like, there's a door where I'll have to spend some of my relics to open that door eventually.
Our viewer Raphael has the comment in regards to Knack. Even though it's not my style of game, it seems simple, and sometimes simple is better.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Sometimes it is. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a person who enjoys complication just for its own sake. Although Colin and I, we both like Civilization and games like that have a lot of different systems in them and things like that. But the simplicity has to resonate with me. There has to be some element of choice, or where I feel like I'm driving this experience. And the idea of collecting these relics to make yourself bigger and then losing them as you fight is super simple and could work. But you're so restricted by where the designer wants you to be at every single second, where it's like, this is the part where you're big, this is the part where you're tiny, and this is the part where you use the mirrors to get past the lasers, and this is the part where you use the flaming logs to burn down a door. It just sort of ends up being like the designer's playing the game for me, and that's disappointing. So here we have these extra relics you can pick up as these sort sort of vacuum things are going back and forth. And eventually you get big enough that you can unlock this next door. And again, it's like, here I am trying to get big, but I'm only getting big because the designer wants me to get big. And as soon as I get big enough to open the door, I got to be small again. So it's a little disappointing.
Yeah, it's interesting. It does put a different spin on the entire experience.
It's just very controlled. Yeah, and it's very much in line with a game that they want the mass market to try out, because it doesn't put a lot of pressure on the player, except for the one-shot enemies.
Yeah, it seems like that's so interesting to me, because it seems like fundamentally the game is simple, but mechanically the game isn't simple. I mean,
right.
Like there are definitely hard fights in the game, and Mark Cerny himself would often talk about how he wants the game to be hard and wants the game to challenge you. It could be accessible if you put it on easy, but if you play it on hard, you're gonna have a difficult time, and it doesn't seem, there's like a juxtaposition there. That doesn't seem to jive in terms of like the message that one part of the game sends, and then the message the other parts of the game sends. I wonder if someone who picks this game up who's casual, your mom or your dad who's playing, your girlfriend or your boyfriend who like doesn't play games or whatever,
right.
And they get into it, but then they get confounded by these fights. What are they going to think about the entire experience?
Yeah, I don't know. But you see, we just had to go through those vacuum things to lose relics, and right after that, there's this thing where you get some relics, and it's like, I don't really know that I'm ever in charge of whether I'm doing well or not in this game.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, this is quite illustrative, actually, of what you were talking about in your review, I think.
Yeah. Well, getting a little further into this would get us into spoiler territory. So if we want to look at another level, we can definitely do that.
We have a few minutes left. So if we want to jump to another level.
Sure.